It's Final Friday.
Kara, your next follow is someone you've followed forever. And you said Jack Dorsey, who is at Jack on Twitter. Great Twitter username.
Yeah.
Extremely cringeworthy Twitter bio, which is #Bitcoin. And that's it.
What is going on with that guy, honestly?
Well, that's my question for you. I assume you follow Jack Dorsey because you love cryptocurrency so much.
No. He lost me at that beard, I gotta say. And one time, he showed up to an interview. I feel like everyone should do what they want, but still, you don't try not to judge people, but I totally judged him. And I said so. I showed up at a meeting with him, and he had it, the Lincoln beard or whatever. And I was like, what the hell? What are you making chocolate in Brooklyn? Like, what's going on here? He loves that thing. I'm not sure what's going on. I follow him because I think he's an interesting follow. I followed him from the beginning. You know, people don't realize this, but Twitter was not Twitter. It was called Idea. What was it?
Odeo?
Odeo.
It was a podcasting company.
It was a podcasting company, and it didn't work. And they had this separate Twitter thing that they used. And so I was there at the very beginning when they were Odeo, and then they switched over, and Ev and Biz and Jack was there, and then he wasn't there, and then they weren't there. And it was I used to call Twitter a lesbian collective. Only a lesbian can say that, because it was like they were all mad at each other and arguing and stuff like that. I know, I'm sure I'm offended all the lesbians, but oh well.
Yeah, we should say, the San Francisco crowd knows this, but yeah, so Jack Dorsey runs Twitter and also Square still, right? He runs both companies? Yeah.
He does. He's a very interesting entrepreneur. I've interviewed him a bunch of times. Mm-hmm. He's actually a very good interview. And I just like to follow him. I think this kind of down Bitcoin avenue is strange. I see why. I understand Bitcoin is not just Bitcoin, but cryptocurrency is a really important area, a disruptive area. And if you notice today, China just totally cut it off.
What they do? They just completely
They made it illegal.
Wow.
So essentially, a month ago, they cracked down on mining. They're trying to be carbon zero or whatever. But China's doing what Amy Klobuchar and Josh Hawley wish they could do, right? They're just like shutting down this, and this, and this, the power of all the tech companies there. Jack Ma's disappeared. The driving one, what's it called there? Jean Liu from the drive.
Oh, Didi?
Didi, right? Yeah. Quieted. They're all been quieted, every one of them. The government has just decided that tech people have too much power, and rather than a democratic process that we have, which means nothing happens, they're just no, really, seriously, they're just clamping down like you can't believe. If I were running an authoritarian country, that's probably what I would do. But we don't have that here, so.
If I were running one, I wouldn't ban cryptocurrency, but I would ban crypto bros. Just anyone who tweets about cryptocurrency,
that's going to change. You know, Gary Gensler is coming to Code next week. He's the SEC chairman. He just gave a speech comparing it to the Wild West of finance. Apparently, I didn't know this, banks all used to have their own currency back in the day, which I was not aware of. I didn't learn that in my history class. And I think it reminds me a great deal of early internet. You know, I was around for that, and there was a lot of con men and crazy people and obnoxious people. And then it consolidated. First Yahoo. You know, Google didn't come along for a while, by the way. Not until 2000, essentially. And so it was, when I got here in 1996, it was nuts. It was crazy, and there were a lot of really sketchy people. So I think cryptocurrency is very important, but it's not going to escape regulatory scrutiny, because the only thing government has that is really powerful is control of money and currency and regulation of finance. And I'll tell you, they're not giving that one up. They're not giving that up.
Well, you mentioned earlier your colleague at the New York Times, Kevin Roos, who's also a former guest on this podcast. And I want to share something to be up on the screen, something he tweeted, which I'll also read for the folks who can't see. He says, "I'm sure there are days when Jack Dorsey wishes Twitter was just as big as Facebook, but it must be fun to be able to just tweet weird crypto stuff instead of having a 55-person team vet your wakeboarding selfies for possible antitrust violations." Which, another good dunk from Kevin Roos.
You know, he's trying to do Elon Musk. He's just not doing it as well. You know, they're friends, actually. People don't.
Jack and Elon are friends?
Yes, they are. I asked Jack once who he really admires, and it was just Elon. That was it. I was sort of surprised. It was an interesting answer. Mark Zuckerberg was Bill Gates and Augustus Caesar. So,
wow, what a pick.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, whoa.
So yeah, comparing Jack to folks like Zuck or Elon or whoever, I mean, Twitter has problems, but I know you are an avid Twitter user. You're on it every day. So how do you feel about, how Jack's doing, how the company's doing? Do you feel good about the fact that you are actively participating in this?
I've done a lot of Twitter Spaces. I'm not on Clubhouse. I don't like the investors, and they kept attacking tech reporters. What is their problem? Yeah. They're the richest people in the world, and they have to complain about Taylor Lawrence. Stop it. So I just don't want to help them get big. I don't want to paint their fence.
They're really hung up on her. It's gross.
Just stop it. Okay, sometimes she says something that you don't like. Move along, boys. And it's all boys, by the way. And one of the reason I like Twitter Spaces is because it's a feature. Mm-hmm. We got 2,000 people last night talking about the Facebook files, and the people are civil and really interesting. I like a lot of stuff at Twitter. I do think they and other social media companies move too slowly, as you know, around Donald Trump. I had written a column in early 2019 where I literally said, what if Trump loses the election and he starts tweeting the election was a fraud and a lie, and it was a fraud and it was stolen? And what if he keeps doing it, and then he encourages his supporters when it's about to be, made official, to attack the government? I literally wrote that. And I put it to people at Twitter, and they're like, well, that's never going to happen. And I was like, yes, it is. It could. And so it was really interesting for them to let it get that way in the first place. Now, I'm not blaming social media it's clearly at Trump's door what happened, and the people who choose to be tourists at the Capitol. But social media allowed him to behave like that. And one of the ironic things is a lot of the behavior Trump did, which I think was appalling, is showing how few rules they had in place, right? Trump is unveiling the fact that they don't manage this shit very well at all. And I think that's
He's testing the fence and showing how much of it is not electrified.
Well, he did. He's such a malevolent actor that he proved that it was haphazard. And of course the Facebook Oversight Board, wouldn't make a decision on him because they were shocked that Facebook didn't have policies. And then this week's stories that Facebook does make exceptions, even though they said they didn't really. It's just one big, again, sloppy, bordering on malfeasance.
So it's a relatively, you feel better about Twitter and about Jack?
I think they're smaller. That's all.
That helps?
I think they were very late. He did do the right thing around political advertising early. It took them all a while to kick off Alex Jones. Mm-hmm. I had a meeting with Zuckerberg. We were there and we argued about Alex Jones. And I'm like, you're going to kick him off in 3 weeks. I wish we would stop arguing about this because you're going to do it. Because he's breaking your rules over again. He's making fun of you. At this point, I don't blame Alex Jones. Why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't Trump? You can say they're bad people, but why wouldn't you continue to break the rules when nobody's stopping you? And if it's to your benefit. But I thought they were very slow to that. They've gotten better with products. I think they're a little bit slow on products. But I like it. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
I'm not on Facebook or Instagram at all. I mean, I've been on it.
Right.
And I use it when I need to for work, but
not anymore.
I don't feel like painting their fence either.
I remember there was an episode of Recode Decode that I think you co-hosted with Dick Costello, who was Jack's successor and predecessor at Twitter. Something like that. But you were asking him about who's funny in Silicon Valley, and I'm pretty sure he said Jack Dorsey is funny.
Kind of.
I think you were skeptical then too. Yeah,
he's not funny.
Well, yeah, I was gonna ask if you had any funny stories or any good stories from just having known Jack since the Odeo days.
No.
Yeah.
He's just he's an odd duck. He's an odd duck. I think he's awkward, much more awkward than people realize. He's very thoughtful, I'll tell you that. That's one thing I really enjoy about him. He has a hard time sometimes articulating things, but he always answers. I appreciate that about him. He shouldn't be running both companies. He knows I think that. It's kind of ridiculous. It's such a narcissistic
He was about to move to Africa, early 2020. Yeah. He was getting ready to move to Africa.
I think he was there.
Yeah.
I think he was there when he was somewhere not where he should have been when they were throwing Trump off.
The investors were already pissed at him for running two companies, and then he's
the stock's doing okay. It's doing okay.
Yeah.
I would worry more if it was bigger.
Yeah. So. Well, that was Jack Dorsey, who's on Twitter @Jack.